of the Spirit's not a coconut. Fruit of the Spirit's not a coconut. If you wanna be a coconut, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Oh, the fruit of the Spirit's not a banana. The fruit of the Spirit's not a banana. You wanna be a banana? You might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Oh, the fruit of the Spirit's not a watermelon. The fruit of the Spirit's not a watermelon. If you wanna be a watermelon, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Oh, the fruit of the Spirit's not a lemon. The fruit of the Spirit's not a lemon. If you wanna be a lemon, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Oh, the fruit of the Spirit's not a cherry. The fruit of the Spirit's not a cherry. If you wanna be a cherry, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Okay, everybody knows that grapes come in bunches, so everybody get in big bunches. The fruit of the Spirit's not a grape. The fruit of the Spirit's not a grape. You wanna be a grape, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, cause the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. The fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control.
God chose David to be the next king of Israel. King Saul had died, and God gave his people a time of peace. David lived in a beautiful palace in the city of Jerusalem. One day, David was talking with Nathan the prophet. David said, "I live in a palace of nice cedar wood, but the ark of God sits inside a tent. It hardly seemed fair. Shouldn't God have a nicer house than I do?" David wanted to build a temple for the ark of God. Nathan said, "God is with you, do what you want." But God did not want David to do whatever he wanted. God wanted David to do what God wanted. That night, God gave Nathan a message for David. This is what God told Nathan to say. "David, are you going to build a house for me to live in? I brought my people out of Egypt. I gave them leaders to guide them. The entire time I have been with them, my house has been a tent. Did I ever ask anyone to build a temple for me? You used to be a shepherd, David, but I made you king. I helped you defeat your enemies, and my people now live peacefully in their own land. I promise you, David, that you and your descendants will be kings. When you die, one of your sons will be king. He will be a strong king, and no one will be able to take his kingdom away from him. He will build a house for me. I will love him, and I will never leave him. When your son dies, his son will be king. Someone in your family will be king forever." Nathan told David everything God said. David went into the tent he had set up for the ark of the Lord. He sat down and prayed. "God, I don't deserve anything you have done for me, and you promised to do so much more. You are so great. There is no one like you. You chose the Israelites to be your own people. You rescued them from slavery in Egypt. God, please keep your promises. I know your words are always true. God promised David that every future king of Israel would come from David's family, and David's kingdom would last forever. God kept his promise by sending his son, Jesus, as one of David's descendants. Jesus is our King who will rule over God's people forever.
Hey guys, it's Miss Ripley again. I hope you guys had fun with our game last week. You have to leave a note in the comments whether it was successful or not, who was able to get that piece of paper in their parents' pocket without knowing, because I'm really curious how it worked out for each and every one of you. Okay, I'm going to take a little time to just talk about a little back history behind this lesson for today, because last week we did something fun. I'm going to try to do something fun one week, and then we'll go a little more into depth in the lesson, okay? So, I am reading off the computer. I will admit that, okay? Okay, so the path to Israel's throne was not an easy one for David. Not at all, okay? He was a shepherd boy who was promised he was going to be king one day, but King Saul didn't like that and tried to have him killed. Remember that? Yeah. But so moving forward, God had appointed David to be the king, and God is a faithful God. He is. So leading up to 2 Samuel 7, where we are in our study, David's good friend Jonathan was killed in battle against the Philistines. Remember David and Goliath? Those were the Philistines. King Saul fell at his own sword, and David became the king of Israel. Which also means David moved the Ark of God to Jerusalem and settled in his palace there. God blessed David and gave him peace from his enemies, which is really nice, because when we're faithful to God, he is faithful in return to blessing us and giving us what we need. Okay. David had been a shepherd. We talked about that, right? Because he started as a shepherd, then he went and killed Goliath and proved his worthiness that God saw in him. So David had been a shepherd, but God made him a king. God promised to the Israelites a place to stay so they won't need to move around anymore, because they were hopping around from place to place to place, and it's exhausting. I know some of you have moved a lot growing up. I know there was one year that I moved about 4 or 5 times in 1 year. And that was a lot. Okay. God promised he would give his people rest from their enemies so they could stop fighting. Though God denied David's desire to build God a house, because God doesn't need a house. He doesn't need to be contained in a house. He's God. He is everywhere. God promised to make a house for David, a dynasty of his descendants, and an everlasting kingdom. Isn't that pretty cool? Now, as we go through this lesson, it talks about that David's descendants will be king and rule forever. And the really, really cool thing is David is like Jesus' great, 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 great. I think I gave you enough. Grandfather, which means that David's line, David's kids, his grandkids, and so on and so forth, though they didn't remain king in the land of Israel all the time, his descendants, which is the line that Jesus came from, is our king and our ruler. So God was even faithful with that David's descendants would remain king and be king forever. Which, isn't that pretty cool? There's no way that David could see that happening, but God is amazing. Okay, I think he's pretty cool myself. Okay, let me see if there's anything else we need to touch. Now,